The Psychedelic Integration Coach and Psychedelia, Psychedelic Experience Integration, are a collective of professionals and peers interested in the potential psychological and spiritual healing properties of psychedelics. Our events are intended for the purpose of educating about mindful and safe integration of entheogenic experiences, offering emotional support, and creating meaningful connections between community members. Find more information at www.psychedelicintegrationcoach.com/events, and may you live that psychedelic feeling.
My name is Cherie Malcolm Gadassi. I am a psychedelic integration coach and the founder and director of Psychedelia, Psychedelic Experience Integration Los Angeles. This is the biggest crowd we've ever had for an event, and I'm going to actually credit that to the center that is hosting us here for the first time and open up their doors for us. We'll have the owner and founders here in a minute talking to us, but thank you so much for inviting us. This just goes to show how much interest there is in the potential healing therapeutic substances that are called psychedelic medicines as well. So we're really grateful to facilitate these events and to facilitate conversation on this incredible topic that is not talked about enough, at least not in an accurate and an unbiased way. I mean, we're not biased or anything about the psychedelics, right? They've only changed our lives, right? But, but we're still happy to host this conversation. So again, thank you all for being here. The mission purpose of our organization is, again, to facilitate this conversation. We're basically a group of peers and professionals that are interested in psychedelic healing. And part of our program includes weekly community integration circles, which take place all over town and on a weekly basis. We also have educational workshops and classes that talk about safety concerns and pretty much a good guideline for working with psychedelic substances. Even though these substances in question that we're talking about, like MDMA, LSD, ayahuasca, 5-MeO-DMT, NN-DMT, and so many other more, mescaline, chuma, I think there are at least a couple of hundred psychedelics that I definitely cannot name all of them. But most of them are illegal, meaning they're scheduled in the same class as cocaine, as heroin, as methamphetamines. And it's quite a shame because there's definitely a massive difference between the groups, yet they're still scheduled in the same category, meaning they are illegal. But even though they are illegal, research does show that millions and millions and millions of people are still using these substances, and they are very, very powerful experiences, and we don't really have access to a good etiquette and mindful practice and safety guidelines as to how to use them properly. So that's what we try to do with Psychedelia, is to kind of bridge the missing gaps in the system, basically, right? So we're a grassroots organization, and we're really grateful to do this work. So part of our program, we also have a series called the Shamanic Practices series, which is a series of educational workshops where we bring in different facilitators or medicine people that have worked or work with certain substances to tell us about right practices, including preparation, engagement, integration, safety, everything that was mentioned earlier, to speak from their own experience and share with the community. Especially in the West here, where we live, it is kind of like the wild, wild west of psychedelics. In many areas of the world where these practices are in fact still legal, like primarily in South America and also places like Jamaica, where there's more of like an indigenous culture and a community culture, there's really no need almost to have these conversations because community councils and the connectedness is part of the culture. And here, because again, number one, the politics, the scheduling that we just listed, talked about, we're missing, again, what these cultures have known for thousands of years. So the idea of the shamanic practices is to bring in this information that is cultivated in the indigenous cultures and to share it here with us. And both of our facilitators here tonight, facilitators of the workshop, I mean, not of the medicine, They actually do, they are involved in facilitation, but in places where the medicine is legal. So they do lead retreats to Mexico and Jamaica, and I don't know, I think you mentioned
Costa Rica as well.
Costa Rica. So they are experienced with the medicine, and again, in the places where these medicines are welcomed and are part of the healing culture. So tonight's program is called 5-MeO-DMT, Science, Samadhi, and the Sonoran Desert Toad. Who here has experience with the Sonoran Desert Toad? Okay, about 30–40%. Who is wanting to try it? Okay. Yeah, one of the other names for the Sonoran Desert Toad or 5-MeO-DMT is actually the Godgasm. Yeah, basically they say that it is one of the most powerful, if not the most powerful, of psychedelics. It is supposedly 5 times more potent than NN-DMT, which those of you who are experienced with that will know that that's like a literal blast to the moon within a second. So imagine that times 5. And it's a complete heart opener that literally can feel like you're having a blown-up orgasm.
That's in my notes.
Okay.
That's in my notes.
Yeah. So you tell us about your Godgasm experience. I'm not going to take away from that. So I have here 2 friends, dear friends of the community, Mr. Sel Sarkin and Mr. Joel Briere, which I will introduce separately as they talk, but just a little bit about what our evening is going to look like. So Sel is going to talk about the history of the medicine, the pharmacological effects, the effects on the brain, the setting of the medicine, which has a lot to do with proper preparation, and also what to look for in a facilitator should you be interested in seeking this medicine. And then Joel will talk about the non-dual samadhi experience, some safety tools of working with the medicine, preparation and integration strategies. So we're literally trying to cover a full spectrum of engagement with the medicine. And Sel will talk first. After Sel's segment, we will have some time for Q&A. And then we'll have Joel continuing the evening. And then at the end, we'll have more time for Q&A. And then after that, the most important part is the community connecting. So we'll have time to go outside and schmooze in this incredible space. And I really urge you guys to make new friends. This is where we meet the others, and this is where we make connections that, honestly, it's like more like family, to me, at least at this point. This community, which has been going on strong for 2 or 3 years, some of the community members are literally like family to me. So make a family member tonight, okay? The family that we choose, okay? Awesome. So I would like to also invite Korush, who is the founder and owner. I'm sorry, I don't know the last name.
It's Korush, right?
Okay, just Korush. Like Madonna, just Korush, please. The founder and director of EVO Health and Wellness Center, who is again hosting us here tonight for the first time. We're super lucky to be here. And he will tell us a little bit about the place and also some etiquette and housekeeping stuff.
Yes, so it's our privilege to have you here tonight. So thank you for being here. And our program at its heart, when we think about what is it that we're even trying to do, what is it that happens, it's all about relationships. And some of us lose connection. We can call it dislocation, we can call it whatever. But for some of us, that happens. And then that leads us down roads of taking care of ourselves, trying to figure it out from day to day to day. And that's what EVO is all about. It's not, we call it addiction treatment evolved, but it's really addiction treatment devolved. It's going back to the human element. What we're concerned with is belonging and purpose and worth and dignity and community and culture and heritage, and not about sobriety or moderation. We attend to substances, we know how to do that, but that's just the symptom of somebody that's having a tough time, a human being that's lost the being part. And so we try to bring that in. And psychedelics it's just a big door, and so many people are asking. And it has been the Wild West. This past maybe even 20 years, people are just sort of flying all over the world and doing a thing and coming back, and then they've got these stories and these things that they feel untethered. They have these huge experiences and they're untethered. And it's really great to see this community and just to hear about what we're going to hear about today. Like, this is what psychiatry's always been doing, right? You get all of the information and the teaching. I'm being sarcastic, right? Like, imagine if we did that in Western medicine. If we sat people down and talked about the lineage and the heritage of substances, and the people that are talking about them have deep personal experiences with them. I don't think we would be giving as much psychiatric medications to so many kids, for sure, right? So I'm not going to take up your precious time. A couple of things. The loudest bathroom in the world is right there. So there you go. There is a second bathroom. We have a large group. That's through that door and to the back. At times that door may be shut because that's also our admin space, and if they're doing something that's private, then we'll just have to wait for this one. We have the rear gate open. It may get cold, and if it does get cold, let us know, and we'll figure it out. We'll just have to compress, close the door. We also have a few blankets. Happy to share those. 4. So that means like 12 or 14 people can share. If you're curious about, we are all about community. If you're curious about us, Trenton, myself, Eric is not in the room right now. We have a sign-up list. Also, please meet us. We'd like to hear from you. Other than that, I don't know what your rules are around cell phones and the use of those from our perspective. Be really respectful to others. If you need to use them, just outside and come on back. You guys may have a different idea. You might want them off. We certainly want them silent. Please don't go in the back. We do have programming happening. That's all I got. It's just really great to have you here and to be a part of this community of folks that are just trying to figure this wacky thing we call life, right? Just wacky.
Thank you.
Thank you.
The warmth that is pouring out of the heart is everything. Thank you. So without further ado, let's get started with our program. I'd like to read Sel's bio. Mr. Sel Sarkin. As an electrical engineer, Sel became interested in the use of frequency propagation as a healing method for various ailments. He designed and built several variations of the EM or Rife machine and researched its effects on the blood. Over the years, he traveled extensively, living in different countries, teaching meditation, dance therapy, and breathwork. As part of his travels, he worked with shamans using San Pedro, ayahuasca, psilocybin, and 5-MeO-DMT. Sel leads retreats to Mexico where the toad medicine is legal. 10 years ago, he was asked to make extracts of cannabis oil for people who had cancer and found that this medicine is a humane and effective way to treat cancer along with other supportive therapies. Because cannabis is considered to be part of the entheogen family, Sel found that journeying in the spirit world is a vital part in a person's healing process. He believes that equal attention must be given to the spirit realm as well as the physical body. Bravo, and looking forward to it.
Thank you for joining us this evening. I'm very excited to be here, and thank you to Cherie for organizing this and the owner of the place. I really appreciate that. And I'm very honored to be alongside my great friend Joel and Psychonaut fellow traveler, I guess. So I was thinking, have any of you listened to the BBC series The Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy? No? Well, there's a very great program from the BBC. It's called that, but I thought I'd call my talk The Hitchhiker's Guide to the 5-MeO Galaxy, the do's and don'ts. I would like to point out that there's confusion between the use of the names of these different medicines, and I think this is a good place to start. So we have 5-MeO-DMT, and then we have NN-DMT, and they're kind of loosely used at the moment. So DMT, if you say DMT, I tried DMT, I'm going on an experience, you're actually referring to NN-DMT, which is the active ingredient or substance of ayahuasca. If you say 5-MeO, then we know that you're talking about the toad medicine. However, here's another confusion. If I say I'm working with toad medicine, people immediately say, oh, that's the frog medicine where you do the little burns on your arm. And I say, no. Frog medicine, is it the monkey frog or the tree frog? This is the tree frog from the Amazons. And this is a very different venom to the toad medicine where we're talking about the Bufo alvarius toad in northern Mexico. So remember, 5-MeO is reserved for the Bufo toad, and N-DMT or DMT is for ayahuasca, and frog medicine is called Kambo. All right, so now we're all on the same page. Toad medicine is also called in Spanish sapo or sapito. All right. So I'd like to go back to 1984. A gentleman known as Albert Most wrote a book called Psychedelic Toad of the Sonoran Desert. And he says, within 30 seconds, there will be an onset of almost overwhelming psychedelic effect. You will be completely absorbed in a complex chemical event characterized by an overload of thoughts and perception, a brief collapse of the ego and loss of the space-time continuum. Relax, breathe deeply, breathe regularly, and flow with the experience. After 2 or 3 minutes, the initial intensity fades to a pleasant LSD-like sensation in which visual illusions, hallucinations, and perceptual distortions are common. You may sense a distortion in your perceived body image, or notice the world shrinking or expanding. You may notice that colors seem brighter and more beautiful than usual, and most likely you will experience a euphoric mood interspersed with bursts of unmotivated laughter. So this is an amazing description already back in 1984 on the complexity of how do you describe an experience. It's very powerful. So I'll talk a little of how my journey began. Now, I'd like a show of hands of who in this room can see auras. 1, 2, 3, 4. Half, right? And could one of you explain to me, how do you use this, perhaps a gift of being able to see auras? Any comments? How do you use it? Somebody had their hand up.
To adapt to your experience.
To adapt your experience?
Yeah.
And do you share what you see perhaps with somebody else?
With my feelings? Yeah.
Mm-hmm. So
I've got a close friend who actually has oral visions, and I was not aware of this until just recently. About 2 weeks ago, she posted something on social media about this, and she says she has oral hallucinations, and she actually sees these very prismatic and almost cartoon-like figures in reality. Like she's looking at a figure, like looking at a school, and all of a sudden this weird crescent-shaped figure appears on top of a car. And it's very difficult for her. She has a lot of issues with headaches and confusion related to it, but she does a pretty good job of processing it and sharing it as well with her colleagues and friends. I'm not really familiar with why and how and where it comes from, but it is very intriguing.
what I want to do, thank you for that.
Yeah.
What I wanted to mention is that there seems to be a consensus now that babies and very young kids, it's standard for them, or for all of us who were once babies, to see auras, and that slowly fades. And for some people, it persists, and it therefore can be used as a gift. And this is what happened to me in early childhood, that I was able to see auras of people, particularly regarding their health. And if the colors and something was off, I would make a comment, much to their chagrin, because I'd say, you know, you don't look so great. Have you seen a doctor? And I'm this little kid, and they're looking at me kind of shocked and said, what are you talking about? And I decided, all right, well, this is a negative response. I probably should keep this gift to myself. And I think this is what a lot of us do, is we turn so-called gifts or talents, because we're not getting approval from the outside, and we put them in abeyance. And so why I'm going over how my journey began is I'm going to give you, in a sense, a look at your own journey. There are all of these bits and pieces of how you live your life. And then there possibly comes a day when suddenly you have that aha moment where those travels, those journeys, those studies, those experiences all seem to make sense. And it's like, this makes perfect sense. I know what I'm supposed to do in my life. Who of you have reached that point? That's amazing. There's a lot of you. That's a beautiful place to be. Would you agree? These aha moments. So I graduated, went on to I did my electrical engineering, was very interested in frequencies and how they work on one's health and restoring one's health or one's homeostasis. So I built these Rife machines, as Cherie mentioned. And then there came another dimension, and this was really a look at more you can call it the spirit world. So in the 90s, I was traveling to India, back and forth to South Africa. I grew up in South Africa, by the way. And a little story that comes to mind is I was at a country house near Cape Town. Beautiful place, good setting. We were sitting outside by fire, someone playing the guitar, and out came the magic mushrooms. So we all started and had a good time, and then somebody asked me if I could drive them back to a cottage that was nearby. So I get in the car, still under the influence of mushrooms. We drive out of the house, down this lane, and then in front of me is this long avenue of trees, perhaps a couple of 100 yards. Start driving through the trees, and then it seems like a half an hour goes by, and I'm thinking, I'm only halfway through, and I'm not getting to the end. So this friend of mine says, you know, it's the same, I have the same feeling, we're just not going to ever get to the end. Perhaps we've entered a wormhole. And he says, so he says to me, look at the speedometer, how fast are you driving? So I looked down and I said, 2 miles an hour. So distortion of space and time is very prevalent with psychedelics. I like that story. All right. So I did the rounds with the different medicines. And then a couple of years ago, I got this email with an elaborate explanation of the 5-MeO-DMT medicine. And after reading it, I just was shaking my head saying, I'm going to do this, no doubt. So I booked a session. 2 weeks later, went on this journey. What happened? Well, as far as I can remember, on that first journey, the only thing I saw was this white, call it a white room. That is about the only thing I can remember. Everything went white. So I thought, well, what's the big deal about this medicine? All right, so I've done the journey, and I went home, and the day passed. The next day came and went. And then I started to notice some changes. And these were not small changes. These were amazing changes. It was like I would open my eyes and I couldn't contain the amount of energy that was coming out of me. I was ready to like leap out of bed and conquer the world. My moods had not been so elevated in years. Then another amazing thing started to happen is I would think of a person wanting to call them, maybe make some arrangements. And typically you know how it goes. You make the call, you get the answering machine, you wait for them to call back, you get a no. This is sort of part of life, right? You have to struggle, you've got to keep going back, persist. But I felt like I was on this river, and whatever I was doing just seemed to fall into sync. Life became easy. And I thought, how is this possible that here I haven't really changed in myself, but things are working. And they're working in ways I cannot believe. And this to me was really quite an epiphany, how this all happens. So the months went by, I did another round of 5-MeO. Some more months went by, I did another round. Well, you can make medicine a commitment for your life, or it may not be for you at all. And this is really something important to consider. Earlier this year, I went to Mexico, and I was with 2 people who were offering the medicine. And the man said, first we do rapé. Do all of you know what rapé is? Rapé is a snuff. It's known as an Amazonian snuff, taken up the nose. In a sense, it's a grounding medicine, and it sort of centers you and also prepares you perhaps for another medicine. So I was given a huge dose. I don't know how I survived. But I actually, I think, left my body for at least 3 seconds. And then we did the 5-MeO. And then it happened. It was this breakthrough they talk about, or enlightenment, or samadhi. But the experience that I would like to use, the word I'd like to use, is a mystical experience. And Eustace Hayden says that the mystic experience is known wherever baffled humanity has sought the meaning of the eternal mystery of life. I like Albert Einstein's quote, "The most beautiful and profound emotion we experience is the sensation of the mystical. He to whom this emotion is a stranger, who can no longer wonder and stand wrapped in awe, is as good as dead. This knowledge, this feeling is at the center of true religion. In this sense only, I belong in the ranks of devoutly religious men." It's a great one. William James, back in 1902, wrote a book, The Varieties of Religious Experience. And he has 4 defining marks regarding mystical experiences, journeys with psychedelics. The first one is ineffability. It defies expression. No adequate report of its content can be given in words. It follows from this that its quality must be directly experienced. It cannot be imparted or transferred to others. Noetic quality, states of insight into depths of truth unplumbed by the intellect. They are illuminations, revelations full of significance and importance. They carry with them a curious sense of authority for after time. Transiency. Mystical states cannot be sustained long. Often when faded, their quality can but imperfectly be reproduced in memory. And lastly, passivity. The mystic feels as if his own will were in abeyance, as if he were grasped and held by a superior power. So what makes the toad medicine different from other entheogens? What makes it unique and considered to be one of the deepest journeys a person can have? So I see about 40 to 60% of you have done this medicine. Would anyone like to comment on the difference between what their experience with the toad medicine is and perhaps other psychedelics? Just 1 or 2 comments.
With the toad medicine, there's no dialogue. It's just complete, feels like a DNA upgrade. And, you know, you just become pure consciousness. and it's almost like you can't actually describe where you've been, how you've gotten there, and what happens next. It's just an embodiment of an understanding of the technology. We really are.
I like that.
Very well said.
I don't think I can say anything else after that.
Sex with the universe.
I feel like it was the most profound experience of my life. And I feel I experienced the reality which is more real than this reality. This I can tell for sure. So the first time I tried to think it out, but the first time I experienced something which seems more real for me than this reality which we experience now.
And have you integrated them? Do they feel, are you feel comfortable with?
Yes, so I actually did. I did many times gradually. For me, it was more spiritual experience here. I was a lady who knows maybe even more than I can tell. So it was a shamanic experience, and I can talk about it hours. And there is no one day in my life afterwards I'm not thinking about this experience. So everything right now I measure with that experience which I had before, and I can tell that it changed me absolutely.
Thank you. Thank you so much. All right, so now we'll get to the difficult stuff, which is the pharmacology. And I have a PowerPoint presentation here. It's exactly one page. And Joel was mentioning there were these T-shirts at the Bufo conference, and it's just, they had underneath the T-shirt, they had the molecule, and then the word God. Okay. And in fact, there's a description given to this molecule called the God molecule, whereas DMT is called the spirit molecule. So same thing, make sure that if you say spirit molecule, you're referring to ayahuasca, and God molecule, you're referring to 5-MeO. All right, so the full name is 5-methoxydimethyltryptamine. I wouldn't call my cat that, but it is a psychedelic in the tryptamine class, and like other tryptamines, 5-MeO has the same basic indole ring structure as DMT. It is so called for having a methoxy group. Methoxy is CH3 in the R5 position. 5-MeO works primarily through the serotonin 5-HT system with the particular binding affinity for the HT, 5-HT1 and 5-HT2A receptors, and to trace amine receptors, possibly mediating hallucinogenic effects. It is, and I'll repeat this, 4 to 6 times more powerful than DMT, and it can be found in a wide variety of trees and shrubs, often alongside DMT and bufotenine. Now, the use of MAO or MAO inhibitors, there is some evidence that indolecyl amines, including 5-MeO, cause serotonin syndrome, particularly when overdosed. And of particular concern are the possible interactions with MAOIs or MAOI inhibitors such as harmaline and harmine. These are sometimes combined with the drug to enhance its effect and can dangerously increase exposure. So do not use MAOIs with 5-MeO.
i.e. antidepressants, correct?
SSRIs. Right. So we can talk about that subject for a while, but it's very important that if there's a facilitator and these questions are not asked, like, are you on any antidepressant, are you taking SSRIs, and you want to do this medicine, then it's asking for big trouble.
That would happen most medicines, actually. Most psychedelics.
Most.
If not all of them, the facilitator should ask you, are you on any antidepressant?
Right. Now, the use of tryptophan. Tryptophan is often used in association with MDMA. but it can be used as an after experience. So if you've had a really good journey, a positive good journey, tryptophan, which is readily available as 5-HTP, can be used, for example, if you had done the journey in the morning and you do it in the evening and you take 5-HTP, it can reactivate the medicine. And you can have a full journey on the tryptophan alone. So that's an interesting point. Now, dosing is important. So we have the synthetic version, and then we have the extract from the bufo toad venom. And this is another very important consideration, because 15 milligrams of the synthetic is equivalent to between 50 to 70 milligrams of the extract. So that means you will have a full experience, 15 milligrams of the synthetic, 50 to 70 on the extract. Now, if you're not sure regarding your condition, your mental condition, what's important is that the facilitator will give you something that's known as a handshake. So this is an introduction to the medicine. Because if he gives you a full dose and you have some mental issues, once again, there can be problems, right? So a handshake would be, regarding the synthetic, around 3 to 5 milligrams, and with the extract, about 20 milligrams. Okay, so you will know then to ask the question, what sort of a dose am I going to get? Okay. A comment by Martin Ball, who's definitely an authority on this medicine, says that individuals with psychotic or pathological tendencies might be pushed over the edge with this medicine. However, there are no known lasting ill health effects from the use of 5-MeO in healthy, balanced individuals. Keep in mind that 5-MeO is naturally produced by all humans and other mammals, and it is a normal part of your biochemistry. So we all have that, and I've heard the comment that when you are born, 5-MeO is released from the pineal gland, and the same thing when you die. So it's like an introduction to when you come in and when you leave. It is routinely used to alleviate depression, anxiety, PTSD, and addictions. And some of the clinics in Mexico will use 5-MeO alongside with ibogaine to help facilitate addiction issues. The clinical research is still coming out, more and more data is being collected, but it's a very, very powerful combination. Can you imagine ibogaine and 5-MeO? I think if you don't come out of your addiction, that would be, you'll be really stubborn. You will let go. 5-MeO also appears to have a placebo analgesic effect comparable to hypnosis. And like the other classical psychedelics, it may be useful in the treatment of acute and chronic inflammatory conditions, including some cancers. The last statement?
Yes.
Like other classical psychedelics, it may be useful in the treatment of acute and chronic inflammatory conditions such as cancer. Oh. All right. In Central and South America, some of the best known plant sources are yopo or cahoba, both of which are traditionally harvested to make psychoactive snuff. It is also found in the milky white venom of the Bufo alvarius toad in southwestern United States, Arizona, and northwestern Mexico, known as the Sonoran desert toad. In keeping with its ceremonial use among indigenous Amazonians, 5-MeO shows great promise in the treatment of many medical conditions. It goes back hundreds, probably thousands of years where ancient snuffing paraphernalia and traces of the compound found in northern Chile date the practice back to at least the 8th century. The use of 5-MeO containing snuff was first recorded in 1496 by Friar Ramon Panay, who was reporting to Christopher Columbus on the Taino people of Hispaniola. I remember that one. Panay observed inhalation of cahoba snuff through reeds and typically was used as a purgative for sick as well as a medium through which to obtain medical diagnosis from spirits. And this is what brings me to what I've spoken about for a long time, is we have relegated medical conditions to the physical body, the physical realm. And we wonder why it sometimes takes so long to heal, why we go through some of these treatments, because the whole focus is on the body. Who talks about a physical condition and even includes, is it some psychosis, is it a mental, was it attributed to some emotional state? Imagine if you went to a doctor's office and they gave you some psychedelic compound, or if you went into the spirit world, found out a little more deeply about why you have this medical condition. You come back and perhaps your healing now goes into all the different etheric bodies. So we're not only looking at the physical body. That would be an amazing day, don't you think? Right? That we bring in the spirit world to help us to remain healthy and strong. And not simply just look at taking vitamins or some supplement. You have to access the spirit world to remain vibrant and healthy. Do you agree? Yes. Right. So I'm going to invite you to try that. Call up the spirit world when you have a cold. All right. In 1936, 5-MeO was synthesized by chemists Toshio Hoshino and Kenya Shimodiera, but it wasn't until 1959 that it was finally identified as the major psychoactive component of yopo and cahoba. Now, Peter First places the use of bufo toad venom all the way back to Neanderthal man and says that the toad and man were always in close proximity, particularly when man started irrigating fields. However, there is no evidence that anyone smoked the Bufo alvarius toad venom before the late 1960s. So in a sense, the way that we're using the medicine today is really very new. Right? There's no culture behind smoking the medicine. There's no real traditions. And what we're doing now is building perhaps a framework or a methodology where this medicine, when smoked, is used in proper context. Because we don't want to go down the same rabbit hole as what happened in the 60s with LSD. In the early 70s, 5-MeO could be legally ordered in the US from the Church of the Tree of Life and the Church of the Toad of Light. Great name for a church. Since scales accurate to milligrams weren't widely available, it was typically added to parsley or cannabis to help with dosing. In January 2011, 5-MeO was declared a Schedule I drug in the United States. Black Friday. All right, so you've been perhaps getting information about 5-MeO, and you would like to prepare yourself for this medicine. Jim Fadiman wrote a book called The Psychedelic Explorer's Guide. This is a well-known name. And he talks about the several S's, and the first two being set and setting. Set is your mindset. What is your mental condition? What is your outlook? Have you done any preparation for doing this kind of meditation? Have you done other psychedelics? as I'd read there, Martin Ball had mentioned that if you're mentally unstable, if you're on pharmaceuticals, if you're going through perhaps some emotional state, you have traumas, and you actually need medical assistance, this medicine is definitely not advised. Okay. And you would be trying your luck then if you do this medicine. Now, I'm not saying that you shouldn't do this medicine if you're mentally unstable, but it has to be done in the correct environment, the correct setting, and you have the right facilitators and medical personnel. Then perhaps the outcome can be positive, but it has to be very carefully done. Setting usually refers to the environment, which is typically either indoors. For example, the room would be well laid out, there would be mats, a bed, something comfortable, or an outdoor setting. And that can be a little more challenging because outdoor settings can be harsh. And I don't think you want to be in a harsh setting to do this medicine. So you want to be under shady trees, same thing. It should be properly prepared. So most of all, it should be safe, solid, sacred, and secure container. The next 5 minutes. We'll have to do round 2. All right. Well, in that case,
this is the handshake test.
I'm going to read to you, this comes from the Third Wave and some of the other sites, what to expect. So let's get to the heart of the matter. The medicine is vaporized, inhaled or smoked, and the effects come on strong, often with a loss of physical coordination and control. Users may experience bright colors, moving environments, or recursive patterns, and perhaps even environmental orbism. Unlike DMT, 5-MeO isn't known for its visionary properties. The experience is more often described as a perspective shift characterized by physical, emotional, and conceptual effects. One of the most common features of the 5-MeO experience is an enhancement of tactile awareness to the point of sensory overload. The body may also feel heavier. Intense emotions are typical, ranging from extreme fear to euphoria, and especially include anxiety or excitement during onset. It's common to experience an overwhelming sense of oneness with the universe. I like that. Or a sense of being outside of time and space while seeming to experience the totality of both. The concept of the ego as a separate entity is typically lost. Other effects include auditory hallucinations, time distortion, nausea, and memory loss. It is uncommon for a person to purge. So remember, do not eat any food before you do the experience or the journey. You probably will purge. Also, if you're quite toxic and you've been following poor diet, you're not in good health, the medicine may release toxins and you will purge too, but it's uncommon. 5-MeO produces an extremely rapid alteration in consciousness and perception. Perhaps the best description is to say that an individual goes from baseline consciousness to infinity within a few seconds after ingesting. This experience has a rapid energetic expansion wherein all boundaries, either external or internal, dissolve into a unified energetic state of being and awareness. Within the state, all of reality is experienced as one integrated whole that extends infinitely beyond normal perceptions of space and time. Because of the radical nature of 5-MeO, many entheogen users feel that it is the ultimate crown jewel of nature's psychedelic substances or compounds. The word entheogen comes from the Greek word meaning generating an experience of the divine within. So you get to experience the divine within yourself. That is worth all everything that you could ever wish for, just to have some of those moments. So it looks like I'm briefly, mostly out of time, right? So in that case, I'm just going to read to you one thing which I think is important, and this has to do with integration. So the question is, why do a psychedelic in the first place? We've looked at history, and we find how medicines have helped to maintain the health of a tribe. You could say the medicine is the first step into seeing many pieces of your life's puzzle. Now the work of putting those pieces together begins. You may see your fears, your habits, your addictions, patterns of behavior. The journey has shown you a part of yourself and how you are inseparable from existence. Suicides are a result of feeling separate and isolated. When the medicine shows you that you belong, you are loved, and you have the magic and power to create whatever life you want, then your journey becomes one of joy and abundance. This is the integrated person, one who has come to realize their love, their gifts, and their calling in life. Integration can be painful and difficult and requires determination and courage to let go of old stories that no longer serve you, to let go of people you no longer resonate with, and to change situations that leave you compromised. It's called cleaning the house and putting it in order. When past traumas and regrets come up, go into them deeply. Let the tears shake you to your core. Allow the grieving to empty you out until there is nothing left and your cup is empty. Only then the light will come into your being. How amazing it is to look once more through the eyes of wonder. Thank you.
Wonderful. Where is this last quote from? Yours.
That's mine.
We'll do some questions for self.
Well, we'll do them together. Or
Well, a couple of questions for now, and then we'll go into another round afterwards.
I just had a quick question, because you mentioned the synthetic version and then there's also the extract.
yeah.
Do you find that there's a difference between one or the other? And also, I know with ayahuasca, as part of the preparation, there's like a shamanic ritual around the preparation. Is there something like that that's with this, in preparing it?
So you don't have to, for example, make a tea like you do with ayahuasca. And so you have quite a wide variety of these emerging ceremonial processes where someone will just keep it, in a sense, almost clinical and very basic. Meaning, here's the medicine, you smoke it, off you go, you come back. Other people will do things very elaborately and have music and chanting and singing and put crystals and do all sorts of things. And then this can continue while you're journeying and then slowly taper off when you come back. So that can be quite extreme.
What about using other plant medicines or medicines before taking this medicine? Like, let's say somebody's a cannabis user or microdoses of psilocybin. Is there, like with ayahuasca, there's a diet that I never did a diet for 5-MeO, and I was wondering if that's important to consider. When,
Yeah, so there's not much preparation. You don't have to do a 2-week dieta. But there are some rules, such as if you're on pharmaceuticals, particularly SSRIs, don't try your luck with that. You want to fast at least several hours beforehand so that your stomach is pretty much empty and you're not going to purge.
Even though you're only smoking
Right.
the vapor, but okay.
Right.
So, have you heard of any way to extend the duration without using a MAOI
inhibitor?
Martin Ball, this was a very big subject for him to have extended states of 5-MeO. And my understanding is that you continue to smoke the substance. You get yourself a big pile and just keep taking hits. I don't know if I could handle that. I mean, even 10 minutes is a lifetime. And you know, what would drive somebody to want to go through an extended state? Are you looking for permanent enlightenment, permanent samadhi, no more functionability in this world?
I'd be happy with an hour.
An hour? What, you need 2-3 hits, that's it. Very good.
There is
If anyone is, sorry for a second, just to piggyback on that, if anyone is interested in learning more about extended states of not 5-MeO, but of NN-DMT, there is a person who is a community leader in Boulder, Colorado, called Daniel McQueen, and he is actually pioneering an extended NN-DMT research right now. Meaning to send people, he's training people to be on NN-DMT for a few hours, if you can imagine that. So you can just look him up, he's called Medicinal Mind.
Well, I can also answer that question is that I've had the NN-DMT in liquid form, and that's exactly what happens. It lasts 2 hours.
An intramuscular shot.
No, this was a drink.
Oh, it's not good.
No, a drink.
A drink.
NN-DMT, a drink. Yeah.
Do you have any resources, information, or perspective on people with MPD or DID, people in dissociative states, engaging in taking 5-MeO DMT, and not necessarily in a severe state, but perhaps someone who's lived with that and who is now, functional, but they still are in that state?
Right. So the key is that you're not under any pharmaceutical influence.
For how long?
Huh?
For how long? At least a couple of weeks.
Yeah, a few weeks at least. So if you feel that you're not under the influence of a pharmaceutical and that you're mentally reasonably stable, meaning you're not, let's say, a full-blown schizophrenic, then this medicine can do some amazing healing work on you. Because by going into the spirit world, by going into this other dimension, the brain, you as a being, things get resolved. And you come back and you'll see if there have been some small to major changes within your perception of yourself and reality.
One more. Last question right here.
It's not really a question about what we talked before about make it longer. We kind of find a way, when you say way to move people that have sources, we find a way to make it between 3 to 5 hours, kind of like DMT experience, make it really quick with harmony, the same way you do it with ayahuasca. Fermenting and crystallizing the DMT. So it's fermenting and crystallizing the harmony and fermenting the DMT. Taking the harmony 20 minutes before and then fermenting in the capsule 20 minutes after that, giving that it's already done.
There could be a big contraindication with that though. There could be a big contraindication with that medically though. It can lead to serotonin syndrome. I'm combining the MAOI from the harmine.
We did it very carefully.
It also depends on every person because every person's different.
Right, every person had a different experience.
Yes, yes. Yeah, that's
it was very interesting.
That's a whole topic of discussion.
Mm-hmm.
There was one more.
Yeah, I had a comment when it talks about the duration of the experience. I work in a kind of shamanic way with the medicine, as Martin Ball described in his book, but slightly different. But I work with the medicine for 3-4 hours at a time. And I think it's connected with the Kundalini channel being open. So when it's not quite broken through and open yet, I think it's a shorter experience. That's just my comment for now.
It can be dangerous if the person is not ready for such a long experience and his being is not ready to open. It can be shot so badly and they have an experience that, right? That when the person
That's right.
Well, this is what I'd spoken about, is we don't want to go down the same rabbit hole that happened in the 1960s, where people were doing huge doses for days at a time, things getting out of control, and then we didn't have the right environment where people at the universities here in Berkeley and Stanford were allowed to do things and going on, the professors were doing the substance themselves with the students. It was kind of chaotic. So we need to make sure it's much more properly contained.
That comment might be very helpful too. Muscle testing works really well for dosing because everybody is really completely different. I have worked with strong men who say, "Oh, I need a strong dose," and so I need really 2 bottles of vodka to feel anything. So, but that person may just need a grain of sand, and then there's someone who had done a lot of spiritual work and said, "Oh, I'm so sensitive, I just need a tiny bit," and they really needed a dose and a half. So,
well, that's an important piece of information. Thank you.
yeah.
Thank you. All right, thank you, Sal. Like many of us, Joel began his relationship with psychedelics as a teenager in an exploratory manner, reading every book he could get his hands on, from Carlos Castaneda to Leary and Albert Huxley. You mean Aldous Huxley?
Is that right, Albert?
Yes. He marveled at the chance to explore the unexplored. Joel began training with curanderos in Peru in 2001, where he started to understand these states of consciousness. Eventually shifting his focus into a deep and devoted yoga practice, he began teaching yoga and meditation, fine-tuning his being. He was reintroduced to plant medicine in 2009 and began to incorporate it into his yoga practice and soon into yoga events and retreats in Costa Rica and Jamaica, right? Joel mainly works with a toad medicine, 5-MeO-DMT, as its effects of a non-dual experience is congruent with the samadhi states that can be attained through yoga. Joel has lived and studied all around the world, from India, Peru, Bali, and Australia to all over the Caribbean. He works with integration coaching using a program he has derived from the Yoga Sutras, as well as teaching Hatha, Vinyasa, Kundalini Yoga, and Vedantic philosophy. So without further ado, Joel Gruyere. Thank you.
Well, hi, everyone. Glad you're all here. So, I'm going to do 2 things just to get us in this, to set a grounds for what we'll be discussing over the next 45 minutes or so. One is going to be to take a big breath. So let's all close our eyes for a minute. And just take a deep inhale through your nose. Now open your mouth inside out. Good. One more just like that. Big inhale. Yeah, that's it. And the other thing is just a little quote from Rumi. This place is only a dream. Only a sleeper considers it real. Then death comes like dawn. And we wake up laughing at what we thought was our grief. So, I will be discussing this wonderful medicine from a standpoint of yogic non-dual philosophy. I don't really have to give much of an introduction. She did that for me. But yes, I instruct yoga and Vedantic and Vedic philosophy and work with these wonderful medicines. And that's really just a description of my ego. And now to clarify, so I can avoid using a lot of Sanskrit terms this evening, we're going to really simplify some. So when I refer to the ego or mind, we're referring to the default mode network. There's many, many different definitions of ego, different definitions of mind. We can go down a lot of rabbit holes, but to keep it simplicity, or to keep simplicity, we'll just say the ego is the part of us that identifies with self, with the individualistic experience of this existence. And that's probably the only thing I got to define. Atman. Atman is the individual soul. And Brahman would be totality, God, if you will. So, how does 5-MeO-DMT relate to Samadhi? 5-MeO-DMT quickly dissolves the default mode network. The ego melts away, and our awareness merges with all that is infinite. This is very similar to what we call Nirvikalpa Samadhi. So when we speak of Samadhi, we're specifically talking about Nirvikalpa. There are many stages of Samadhi, and even different parts of Nirvikalpa Samadhi. And we could even go into Kaivalya, but to keep it simple, we're going to be talking about Nirvikalpa. Cessation of self, where there is no more you, there is no more subject-object relationship in existence. It is merely everything. And to get a good little quote, because Samadhi, there is no English equivalent to this word. There is really no way to describe Samadhi. It is truly the ineffable. It is that which cannot be described. And if there's one man who can kind of describe it in the best way I've ever heard since Swami Vivekananda and Rumi, is Daniel Pinchbeck. So I'm going to read a beautiful quote from here. In Nirvikalpa Samadhi, there is a cessation of self-activity, of all seeking, of all doing. We can only speak about what falls away as we approach it, and we can speak about what reappears when we return from it. There is neither perception nor non-perception, neither thing nor no thing, neither consciousness nor unconsciousness. It is absolute, unfathomable, and inscrutable to the mind. When the self returns, there is a sort of not knowing, a bit of a rebirth. And everything becomes new again. We're left with the perfume of the divine. And that perfume lingers longer as one evolves on this path. So he said it much better than I can. So that's a little glimpse of something that can't be described. So Samadhi brings us to non-duality. What is non-duality? Non-duality is just as I said. It is the ceasing of having a subject-object relationship and not being anything, but being everything at the same time. And my foundation of knowledge with non-duality comes from Vedanta. Vedanta is a collection of scriptures that came after the Vedas thousands of years ago. Vedanta literally means no other. So in Vedantic scriptures, we had many different schools of thought, So I'm going to be specifically speaking from two different, Advaita Vedanta and Shuddha-Advaita Vedanta. The big difference between these two is Shuddha-Advaita Vedanta as opposed to Advaita Vedanta. Let me rewind that. Advaita Vedanta, Brahman is everything. So we are Brahman, and Brahman is totality. And yet we exist in Maya. Maya would be the illusory world. This world we exist in, the material world, and that is the illusion. In Shuddha-Advaita Vedanta, Maya is also Brahman. So I fairly resonate with that. I feel that we chose to pull this veil, that having this veil gives us this beautiful experience of being a human in a dual reality. So we have that clarification now. Through these Vedantic teachings, there's a lot of benefit to studying them when working with 5-MeO-DMT. As 5-MeO-DMT, as it gives us this non-dual experience, if we don't have a foundation of knowledge or understanding of it, it can be a huge, huge shock. This is one of the medicines that sometimes can do more harm than it can good if we're not prepared for it. So preparation is of utmost importance. Not only making sure we're not interfering with any medical contraindications, but making sure that we have a bit of understanding of what's going to happen afterwards. Unlike a lot of other psychedelics, the difficult part can be coming back instead of coming in. With NN-DMT, it's a cannon, you know, you are being blasted out there and everything is happening so fast that can be the difficult part. With 5-MeO-DMT, there's not too much of a chance to fight it. But when you come back, that's the interesting part. As the default mode network starts to come back online, the ego starts to wake up. It has to get its footing. It's confused, it's lost, it's insecure, and it's usually the insecurities that come up first. Let's say you're sitting in circle and you're in the center of circle. You've just gone through your experience. And as you start to come back, the mind starts to come back and you go, okay, I did a medicine, I did a substance. I'm starting to understand what's happening now. Oh man, maybe I've been here for a long time. Is everyone at the circle judging me right now? Should I get up? Have I been here forever? So it's very interesting to watch the mind as it comes back with all of its beautiful imperfections. And I think that's why this is really a gift for this age, is we haven't priorly been given something so accessible that can help us understand totality of reality in such a quick and very real way. As the young lady back there said, it's an extremely real experience. You come back and there was no doubt in your mind that what you just experienced was being God. You have just been all-pervasive source. And then comes life. So what I'd like to speak a little bit about is how do we integrate that into our daily lives? Just like I tell my yoga students, it's easy to find peace on a yoga mat. How are you going to feel when you're stuck on the 405 in traffic afterwards? How are you going to be when you're at home during Thanksgiving with your parents and you're engaging in a family quarrel? So I like to use the Yoga Sutras of Patanjali. The Yoga Sutras were scriptures written between 300 and 800 BC by a sage named Patanjali. And these scriptures were essentially an outline to the human condition. They were mapping of consciousness in order for us to understand the roots of our consciousness, why we are here, and to understand the relationship between mind and awareness and consciousness. It is an 8-limbed program, and a lot of it has been lost in the West. When we think of yoga, we think of physical poses, we think of Lululemon pants, and you know. Yoga in itself means union. Union with what? Union with the divine. Union that may be your higher self, may be God, however we choose to look at it. But it is union. So yoga in itself is an eight-limbed path. The first limb is yama, the second is niyama. And then I'll get on to the rest. And I'll show you why these are very, very applicable for integration. Yama, which are self-regulating behaviors, are 5 different principles or practices to observe. We have ahimsa, which is truthfulness. So, are we being true to ourselves? Let's say we've just had a very, very strong experience. And sometimes the hardest thing to do is give ourselves a little rest, to give ourselves some love, to give ourselves a break. Are we being true to ourselves, true to our progress, if we are trying to engage in our daily lives in the ferocious manner that comes with living in Los Angeles? Are we being true to our loved ones? Are we expressing ourselves from a place of sincerity? So that's one practice to start using to integrate this experience. And by that I meant satya, not ahimsa, excuse me. So satya was truthfulness. Ahimsa is nonviolence. Nonviolence doesn't only mean don't kill someone or don't hurt someone. It also means don't be violent with yourself. The literal translation is nonviolence towards all sentient beings. We are sentient. And we can't only just hurt ourselves through physical means, but through our mental thought process. Watch your thoughts. Every day, observe how we are thinking. So make sure that you are not harming yourself. Make sure that your process is not harming others, keeping that in consideration. Asteya, non-stealing. That one, of course, don't steal from others, but also don't rob yourself of precious time. Don't rob yourself of experiences because you may feel that you are inadequate for a certain experience. Don't rob yourself of the chance of going to a beautiful lecture or a beautiful workshop or a class because you don't feel that you fit in. Something like that. Very simple. Don't steal from others. Don't steal from yourself. Aparigraha, non-covetousness. Not coveting what you do not already have. Do not reach for and grasp for. This does not mean don't move forward in a progressive way, but simply, let's use an example. Let's say you're in a physical yoga class and the person next to you just has a totally awesome practice. They're doing handstands all over the place and just killing it. You're like, oh, I really wish I had their practice, or I wish I had their body. This is of little use to yourself. So not coveting, but really cherishing what you have and understanding that you are continually growing and evolving. And then we have brahmacharya. Brahmacharya is somewhat of a debate as to its true meaning. Many feel that brahmacharya means abstinence. We do not need to be a monk, in my opinion, and completely withhold from sexual affairs. Simply, to me, brahmacharya means conscious restraint of one's energy. And as the act of making love can be a big release of energy in the form of sexual energy, it's just don't go throwing it all over the place, basically. So use discipline with it. And then we get into niyama. Niyamas are personal practices for the inner world. We start with saucha, cleanliness. In your surroundings, I'm sure we all know how much better we feel when our house is nice and clean or our room is nice and clean. Easier to think, you feel a little more settled. That also means for your inner world. What are you putting into your body? What are you watching? What are you listening to? Keeping that in mind, just cleanliness within you, around you. We come to santosha. Santosh is contentment. So again, this really relates to aparigraha, not coveting, but being content within yourself. And again, santosha can be a trap in the yogic path. Santosha does not mean be complacent. It doesn't mean be completely comfortable where you are and don't try and progress or move forward. But treat yourself in a loving way. Understand you are where you are because of everything that you have done and witnessed until this point. Know where you want to go and keep moving in that trajectory. But don't be hard on yourself. Don't, oh, I need to be here, I should be here, why am I not there? Be content. Appreciate what you have. Appreciate the beautiful day it was today. Appreciate the beautiful look in your lover's eyes. Anything, just contentment. My favorite way to think of santosh is, you know when you wake up in the morning and you might not have to go to work? You wake up and you're tired, but you realize you have nothing to do and you're in a state where you can just go right back to sleep and you've got that super comfy feeling. You're like, ah, yes. Just complete contentment. That might only make sense to me. I don't know. Tapas. Tapas are disciplines. The yoga asanas, so the physical postures of yoga, are tapas. Any forms of discipline, whether they be yogic, shamanic, any type of spiritual austerity, just keeping some sort of discipline, a daily practice, especially something that creates heat within the body, whether it's energetic or physical. Svadhyay. In my opinion, Svadhyay is the most important part of the yamas and niyamas. Svadhyay means self-study, so observing yourself. After a strong medicine experience, whether it's with 5-MeO or anything else, we can experience a lot of emotion or a lot of different things coming up. We've just unlocked things, and things have to come up in order to come out. So watch them. Do not attach to them. Simply know that they're coming up in order to be released. We observe them. The observer is called Purusha. So play the observer. Do not connect with it in egoic consciousness. Simply watch what is coming up in you. Be aware of what is coming up in you, and let it release with love. Sometimes it's something that we have to understand. You know, let's say you have a tick. Somebody said something to you that automatically triggers you, and you catch yourself in that moment. Watch yourself. Why is that happening? Oh, it's because my father used to beat this into my head when I was 6 years old and tell me that all the time until I was a teenager. And now it just annoys the hell out of me when I hear it said. So watch it. Understand it. Sometimes we don't even need to understand it. Sometimes it can be an energy that is so abstract that it's beyond our means of thought. Sometimes it just needs to come out. But sometimes there's lessons to be learned in it. So always observing that. And then we have the beautiful Ishvari Pranadhan, which is God consciousness. Always being aware of your higher self, or always being aware of your connection to the divine infinite. So just those two limbs, yama and niyama, can be greatly effective to integrating a psychedelic experience, and especially with 5-MeO DMT, because with 5-MeO DMT, if especially it's your first time, your world has just been rocked. It is, things have changed. I know after my first full release with this medicine, it put the pause on me for a little while. It, not in a bad way, but just, it really, really forced me to confront and observe the paradigm in which I had been existing and all the thought patterns that I had built up around myself as my spiritual belief system. And the ego loves to hold on to our spiritual beliefs. The ego loves to hold on to whatever lineage we are working with or whatever shamanic practice we are working with. It's part of the spiritual trap. It's what happened to religion. It's why people ended up going to war over God. We love to hold on and possess that which releases us and frees us. So, don't do that. just don't. So yes, yama and niyama are great, great toolkit for that. The third limb is asana, so the physical postures of yoga. What the physical postures of yoga do is not only do they strengthen the nervous system, but they open up the body and open up what's called the nadis. Nadis are energetic pathways in which prana flows. And prana is our life force, our vital energy, ki or chi, shall we say. And there are approximately 72,000 nadis within and around the human body. So the physical practice of yoga is opening up and really allowing that huge surge of energy that you just experienced to be distributed through the body and to be released in an appropriate manner. The physical postures are also not only strengthening the nervous system, but also preparing the body to sit in meditation comfortably. I don't know about if there's anyone else who practices yoga, but when I first tried to sit in meditation, you get pretty uncomfortable after a few minutes. But you start to open up your body a lot more, your hips get comfortable, your sacrum becomes more comfortable. It allows us to sit easier. Our fourth limb is pranayama. Pranayama literally means constraint or restraint of prana. It is using the breath to move pranic energy. Prana is not the air, it is not oxygen, but it is moved and directed by the breath. So there are millions of different pranayamas, and there are different techniques of manipulating the pranic flow within and around the body. This can be great after a strong Toad session, except I always recommend not getting into any deep pranayamas within the first few days of a Toad experience, as a lot is processing in the body and it can actually aggravate or interfere with the process. So mindful breathing can be great at first, and then when you're ready to kind of step into it, if you're going through reactivations, wait till the reactivations are finished, and then you can get into some of the more aggressive pranayamas, shall we say. That'll be the last time I say shall we say. I say it a lot. So after pranayama, we get into the higher limbs, which are seldom practiced in the West, but really, really come into play with this medicine. First, we have pratyahara. Pratyahara is withdrawal of the senses, of the external senses. So the 5 external senses, it is moving away from them and directing your awareness within. Beginning to be aware of your internal energetic system. Beginning to become aware of your internal physical system. Everything, really just observing, finding that beautiful stillness. After pratyahara, we come to dhyan, which is intense focus on one object. So meditation. This can be a Tradaka meditation, gazing at a candle flame, which is a wonderful practice, by the way, and great to do in the evening to help sleep and produce melatonin. But also gazing at a yantra, which is basically like sacred geometry, and meditating on one image. After dhyan, we move to dharan, which is total absorption into the present moment. So once we have conditioned the body and mind and began to cessate the vrittis, which are emotion or mental fluctuations, we're in a place where we can completely experience the full present moment. Once we move through this, we come to samadhi. Samadhi, the 8th limb, we can't call it the final limb because we're beginning to see that this rabbit hole has no end. But samadhi, total absorption with the infinite, complete merging with the cosmos and experiencing the Godgasm, which is the best and most descriptive word for a 5-MeO experience I've ever had. It makes sense that it's orgasmic in feeling because that is the feeling we experience when we are creating life. That is the feeling of creation. And a full-on Godgasm is like 1,000,000 orgasms times infinity. And it's wild. So in this process, and after we have just unlocked so much and awakened so much, it's very important that we constantly observe ourselves and observe discipline. Because without disciplined integration of this, spiritual ego is very prevalent. Spiritual ego is a big trap. Like I said, we love to attach to our own practices. We love to attach to our experiences. But we have to remember there is an infinite amount of experiences and rabbit holes that we have no idea about. Everyone's experience can be different. Yes, at the root of it all, we are all that source energy. We are all that Nada Brahma, that frequency. But Nada Brahma is infinite. And we have all come into this existence to experience an infinite amount of experience. In my opinion, we are just God experiencing him or her, not him or her, but experiencing itself subjectively through an infinite amount of creations and just loving the joy of experiencing. Whether good or bad, we have come to view things as dark and light, good or bad. But what is dark and light? Dark the void, the primordial womb, for without which we could not have a place for creation. And light would be that creation, that seed. So, let's get another quote about not attaching to our own practices. So Swami Vivekananda, who is a great sage and Swami out of India, of course, in the late 1800s, he was the first person to present yoga to the West in the World Religious Conference in 1893. He's kind of the man. But he says, the end of all religions is the realizing of God within the soul. That is the true universal religion. So working with this medicine, it allows us to confront that fact that we are that which we seek. And that has been my biggest lesson that I've been learning. The thing that I've been hunting for so many years, we already are it. Our true state is what we would call Sat Chidananda, truth, consciousness, and bliss. Our true state is Samadhi, but we are existing in this experience. So it can be a very confronting thing. We all have our own paradigms. We've all been raised different ways. We all have different belief structures. And for the ego to be confronted with, wow, everything that I have been feeling may have not been as I thought. I really, like I said, I really had to go through and reevaluate my views. And that's really kind of why I shifted my work and kind of my views with plant medicines away from, and I still love shamanic practices. I have all the love in the world for shamanic practices. My relationship with this medicine is not in a shamanic way, but more in a yogic way, and with Soma. Soma was the psychedelic brew of India thousands of years ago. But understanding that it is not something that has to be done. Nothing has to be done while you're on this medicine. It is simply the act of surrendering. So if you are preparing for an experience with 5-MeO-DMT, if you are interested in it, remember the word surrender. That is the only thing that matters. And it can be the hardest thing for us, is to let go, because we hold on to so much. And when something just shakes us up like that, and if the mind is still active, the mind realizes that it's being shut down, the ego realizes that it's being ripped away so fast, it can produce an experience of a feverish hell. And we just have to face that and simply let go and surrender deeper and deeper and deeper until there is nothing left to surrender to, until there is no us to surrender. And then we all can just relax a little bit. It's that's been the greatest gift for me with this medicine, is feeling of arrival, not having to chase anything anymore. Just understanding that everything is as it is. And this does not mean don't pursue happiness. This doesn't mean give up and just be complacent. But just know that Tatvamasi, thou art that. We are already it, that which we seek. There are so many different names for Samadhi in every faith and religion. With Catholicism and Christianity, we have the beatific vision. With Sufi, we have Faena. We have Nirvana with Buddhists. And I love the direct translation of Nirvana, which is the cessation of vana, the cessation of mental fluctuations, the cessation of thought. The second verse to the Yoga Sutras is Yoga Chitta Vritti Nirodha, meaning yoga is the cessation of the mind. Yoga is the cessation of self. So true union is where we end and the infinite begins. And there really is no end or beginning, but that's just the way we can kind of comprehend it. So, that being said, the 5-MeO-DMT experience, in my opinion, is the most profound experience one can have in their lifetime. It is going to be different for everyone, but of course there is a general unity feeling we all get. How deep we go into it, who knows? But it's up for all of us to explore. But what it's really showing us right now is to simply surrender and to allow and to be. I really, really, really like the fact that there is no long-standing lineage with this medicine. I really like the fact that there is no indigenous connection to this medicine. I really like the fact that there is nothing that a certain group of people can hold on to and claim. I feel this is a medicine for the entire earth. I feel this is a medicine for this age, and it's up to all of us to hold that energy and to really see where it goes from there, because it's anyone's future. And it's a big one. It's a very big one. Yeah. Yeah. I'm going to give us one final quote before I stop yammering. And let's just close our eyes. I'm going to give us a quote from the Kena Upanishads. And many of you have heard me speak this quote before. It's dealing with the nature of Brahman, or totality. Not that which the eye can see, but that whereby the eye can see, know this to be Brahman the eternal, and not what people here adore. Not that which the ear can hear, but that whereby the ear can hear, know that to be Brahman the eternal, and not what people here adore. Not that which speech can illuminate, but that by which speech can be illuminated, know that to be Brahman the eternal, and not what people here adore. Not that which the mind can think, but that whereby the mind can think, know this to be Brahman the eternal, and not what people here adore. And that's Brahman. Oh, so I have presented this through a yogic point of view. There are many, many points of view. We have to remember there are so many paths to the same place. If this resonates with you, contact with me. There's lots of fun practices we can do, lots of fun information on my website. And it's a beautiful path, but remember, there are so many different paths. There is no one correct path to work with this medicine. There's plenty of wrong ways to work with this medicine, but there is not one ultimately right way. They are all beautiful ways, and as I said, we all came up differently. We all have different paradigms in which we operate. So we have to remember certain things will resonate with us that won't resonate with others. So feel out what works with you. Feel out your own paradigm, and remember, then in the end, it doesn't matter. That's all.
Can you talk a little bit about reactivations and how they can be avoided or unnecessary?
Question, yeah.
Great question.
Yes, thank
And
you.
specifically talk about withdrawing from the senses. I know you should avoid things, some certain meditations or things that you're reactivating. I was wondering about float tanks.
So, reactivations. As a dear friend of mine says, 5-MeO-DMT is the gift that keeps on giving. Activations happen in a good percent of people who work with this medicine. They can happen anywhere from the first night after to weeks after, even months after, even in some cases years after. A reactivation can be anywhere from a slight glimpse of the experience to a full-blown 5-MeO-DMT experience. Quite often they happen during the witching hour between 2 and 3 a.m. One can awake from slumber and find themselves having a godgasm. And if you are not prepared for it, if you don't know what's going to happen, it can be very scary, because there's a lot of traveling facilitators right now that are, one, not scanning or screening their participants and are not giving them any integration information and not telling them about reactivations. So if someone has a reactivation all of a sudden they don't know about it, they think they've broken themselves. So if you or anyone you know are experiencing reactivations, you're okay, you didn't do anything wrong, you did not go crazy. Sometimes that energy just has to balance out. It is a huge surge of energy, and you've just opened new neural synapses, bridging yourself to the gateway of the infinite. Your body has to recalibrate a little bit. Weird things can happen. Just as Sel said, this is endogenously produced within the human body. This medicine is already within us. So we've just created a relationship with that medicine that we are aware of. So the reactivation, when it comes, if it comes, surrender to it, of course. If it happens to happen while you're driving, you can pull over to the side of the road and go through it. I've had it happen once when driving on the way to one of Shree's integration circles, and it was a beautiful experience. I was driving down the PCH into the sunset. It started to happen, and I was like, okay. Was about to pull over, and I felt that I was able to go on cruise control in a way. And God is a great driver. Kind of just went into it, and, but I was still cognizant. My awareness had not left egoic awareness. I was that we would say is the edge of the cauldron, as Rak Razam likes to put it, where we can experience and feel the infinite, but are still aware of ourselves and still are present in ourselves. They can happen with full-on body spasms. They do with me. Don't worry, just let it happen. Just go through it. If you would like to encourage a reactivation, just as Sel said, 5-HTP in the evening before you go to bed is a great way to give it a little pat on the bottom and say, I'd like to go back there tonight. So if you don't want to have them, avoid deep meditation immediately after. Actually, I would avoid deep meditation, period, immediately after the experience, at least for a few days. Let the process ground. Do more grounding things. Especially if you want to avoid reactivations, get your feet in the earth every day. Root your feet in the earth, grounding foods, beans, quinoa, root vegetables.
Meat and potatoes are really good for grounding after.
Meat and potatoes. And just grounding, reach out. If you're having experiences that frighten you, know that you're not alone. There's a big community. There's a lot of online forums. And we are lucky enough to live in a city where we've got a beautiful community, just like you all, with lots of people to reach out to. We have integration circles with Psychedelia, with Cherie, with Greg, with John Saul, and it's amazing. And I just pointed at no one, he moved. But, yeah, just reach out. Always reach out. If you need assistance with integration, myself, I'm only a phone call or an email away anytime. It doesn't matter if you've worked with me or anything. Just if you have questions, I'm always here to answer them. There's a lot of good information. Yes. Yeah, we're all family. So reach out. Another question?
From your experience or research, and this is for anyone who's done this work extensively, for healthy, balanced people, are there any side effects on organs, on...
There is a beautiful, beautiful, beautiful anti-inflammatory effect with this medicine. Thank you. So are there any physical side effects for healthy, strapping human beings with this medicine? This medicine has a very nice anti-inflammatory effect. Myself, I had an experience where I was scheduled to go sit with a group that I'd love to sit with. And they were coming into town. And 3 days before, I tore my left SI joint, moving a carpet from under a couch. And I could not get up or sit down without assistance. I could not move without extreme physical agony. I go into full body spasms when I'm on this medicine. And any movement really hurt it. So I was like, oh my goodness, do I need to sit this one out? And my intuition was very comfortable with it. My intuition just, no, you're good, go for it. So I went for it, and to this day, that was still the best one I ever had. Just a real big one. And went into my full body, just spasms, had the ultimate godgasm. When I came out of it, I had complete mobility in my lower left side and have not had any signs of the injury since. I am not by any means saying this is a cure-all drug or it can cure ailments just like that, but it did with me. Like I said, very anti-inflammatory. As for negative side effects with physical, healthy human beings, I cannot speak to any negative side effects besides if reactivations occur and they are unwanted. It would be more mental, but that can all be worked with because it's all part of the process. So as long as you're using some sort of integration program or integration process, it's all stuff to be worked through. But no physical danger, except for serotonin syndrome if you are overdosed. Dosing is a big thing, and there's a lot of facilitators that have not really began to grasp the idea that we don't need 100 milligrams of toad to have a full release.
What about frequency with that?
It's completely up to the individual. And it's different all the time. You have to really listen to yourself. If someone's in a state where they're still having a lot of reactivations and the experience has still got a good hold on them, and it's keeping them up at night, may not be the best time for them to go under. That being said, it might be a great time for them to go under and really complete that process. Depends on what facilitator you're working with, depends on your support circle. It really depends on the individual. So I would say that would be case to case. But I go in spaces where sometimes I like to work with it a couple days in a row. Sometimes a good 7 or 8 months in between is fine. So yeah, it's different every time. But listening to your intuition and feeling free to reach out to others for advice and explaining your situation and where you're at if you're not sure.
I think it's important to reiterate that it seems like the risks and the dangers of working with this medicine are more emotional and psychological, more so than physical. And
If you do want to work with it continuously, then you really need to check in to make sure that you are extremely grounded and very stable, and like Joelle said, have a good support system. The last thing you want to do is, if you're already feeling ungrounded and already working through a lot and you need time to work through things in your integration phase, it can literally take months and years to work through trauma that came up in psychedelic states. And sometimes people intuit that they feel like they want to go into the medicine to resolve their trauma, but it's not necessarily a good idea because it can actually open you up a lot more, not just emotionally, but also energetically. So always err on the side of caution. These are really, really powerful substances. And maybe not with 5-MeO because the history is so short, but with NN-DMT that's in ayahuasca, there are definitely cases of individuals that have gone into psychotic states and haven't come back very easily. Depending on mental health conditions that weren't even necessarily, they weren't necessarily aware of, but they were just predisposed to these mental health conditions, primarily bipolar and schizophrenia. Thank you.
Thank you.
Just following on that in the physical aspect related to the heart, because I know when like the buccal produces that towards other animals, it creates cardiac arrest in the other animals. So in humans, what's the heart health level that's appropriate for that? Because there are some situations.
It is a factor. It is a factor.
Yeah.
I don't suggest working with the medicine if you have high or low blood pressure issues. I recommend getting them under control first. There are ways to work with it while with those conditions. I'm not one to have an understanding of how that would be done safely, but I hear things. But it is definitely an issue. There have not been any deaths, as far as I know, resulting from that, but it's not like we'd like to have one. So yeah, with the heart, it does give a spike in blood pressure, definitely, just as NN-DMT does, and it can play a factor. So yes, as you had said, in a healthy, strapping person, when it comes to heart ailments, I recommend consulting a physician, honestly, and getting an accurate recommendation.
And I'll make a comment too that using the rapé or hapé medicine before will immediately let the individual know if they're physically ready to take it, because I've given hapé to someone who had medical condition but really wanted to do the medicine, and they basically lay down and said, I'm done. They were not really available to actually accept the next round or next stage. And so that's an important piece of information to really set up that is the person now compass and competent to do this medicine.
Yes.
Yeah, just a comment. There hasn't been a lot of long-term research done, but there has been some recently. Dr. Joseph, I can say his last name right,
Barsuglia.
Yes. He has been involved in a paper that was published probably within the last year that I found really informative and interesting, just on taking groups of people and responses, and I think it's by Sage Publishing House. It's really easy to find.
Beautiful, thank you.
Yeah.
Yes, yeah. Dr. Joseph and that crew and Alan Cooey Davis have been doing some amazing stuff, and we're very lucky for these people because my mind is not on the medicinal side. I have little knowledge of that realm, so thankful that we have people that can traverse the metaphysical and the physical, and much more study needs to be done on this medicine, and it's very exciting that it's happening. It's all going down, and we're all a part of it. Any other questions?
How have you dealt with people who had psychotic breaks?
Psychotic breaks with the medicine, or psychotic breaks with the medicine? A spiritual emergency. So, in my experience, the way I work with them just as I would treat someone who has had a Kundalini activation but wasn't ready. I learned how to work with that many years ago. While I was in India, I had we'll call it a premature Kundalini evacuation. Premature Kundalini activation. And my nervous system was not ready. Energetically, I was not prepared for it. And it can be a very damaging thing. I have very dear friends in the yogic circle who have been hospitalized by prematurely getting into very advanced breathing techniques and certain techniques. So just as in that, as I feel that this is such a congruent thing to the spiritual emergence, I use similar techniques. So really, a few different people I'll refer them to. I've got a lot of family friends who are energetic healers and energetic surgeons. Certain reading that I'll give them, there's certain just scripture, certain books that are just simply the contemplations, help alleviate conditions in the mind and help them get an understanding of what they're going through. Holding space, sometimes all they need to do is have space held for them. You know, be listened to, and for that to be received with love. And making sure they're using a grounding diet, and a few other techniques. Reiki is great for that. Tai Chi is very good for that. With very acute psychotic breaks, there's other people that I would refer them to if it's outside of my own abilities.
What if it happens like right in front of you on the spot?
If it happens right in front of me on the spot, well, many of the experiences look like a psychotic breakdown. And then it just becomes about when they come to a state to where they're cognizant or when they're back in their body and they realize what's happening, simply talking them through it a little bit. A lot of the times it's just the ego panicking because it has just been banished temporarily and has no idea why. The ego is not here to harm us. It's not here to... I know there's a lot of slogans, the ego is not your amigo, and kill the ego, crush the ego. If we didn't have an ego, we wouldn't be here doing this. We have to have an ego for our individual human experience. It's about making the ego your ally. So a lot of times, just in a certain voice I'll use or the way I speak to them, kind of pampering the ego a little bit, making it feel that it's okay, making it feel that it's nurtured, making it feel that it's safe, because a lot of times it's about not feeling safe. And then it also comes to screening, because sometimes if someone is having a psychotic break, it's because they weren't screened properly and they went into the experience with a condition that was unsafe. I've had an experience where someone was not fully forthcoming with their history and had acute PTSD, and it triggered the PTSD, and there was a whole episode to follow. And it was a huge, huge learning step, though. I'm very thankful for it, but screening is a big thing. Make sure they're not in a place where an acute condition can be triggered. So yeah, if it happens right in front of me, just talking them through it, calming them down, certain energetic practices.
And the word psychiatrist, by the way, is not a cuss word. Like there are psychiatrists that actually are very friendly,
Yes.
know these states, and they don't want to diagnose you to put you in a mental institution. You might be better off being diagnosed just to rule out certain conditions so you could just get the best care possible.
Mm-hmm.
Again, it's a very powerful experience. It completely changed someone's life for the better or
for the worse.
Completely the other way. So mental health professionals are available.
Emma Bragdon has a lot of good information on psychiatric work involving spiritual emergency states. And if you have to check Emma Bragdon, her stuff is great. Yeah. I saw a hand somewhere over here. Any other questions?
So you talked about like this Vedic tradition with the medicine that you kind of adopt. Are there any and I know I've heard that quite a bit, like this non-dual thing, but are there any other sort of like adoptions or adaptations, the way people see this medicine or that you've experienced?
Within the yogic realm or outside of the yogic realm?
Outside of the yogic realm, like just completely taking yoga and...
Oh, absolutely, absolutely. I've worked with, I've got fellow brothers and sisters who work with the medicine who come from Native American lineages and have kind of adapted a lot of their traditions into it, involving merging with Great Spirit. And if you look to the core at a lot of the ancient Native American traditions, there is a non-dual essence to it. It speaks about merging with Great Spirit and understanding the totality of Great Spirit. So I know it's through there's some Lakota people, different people down in Mexico. But yes, and then I'm sure there's other ones too that I just haven't had the pleasure to experience yet or speak to. But yes.
Well, I'll also mention that some of the ceremonies I've been to, where the Native American ceremony of using the drum and the chanting went right through the session. Mm-hmm. And so that in itself overwhelms the ego and makes, in a sense, makes sure that the person doesn't lose it. It's as if the sound and the drum beat and this chanting is holding a person in a certain position, and it can be very powerful.
Yeah. All right, well, should we give a nice round of applause? Yeah. Guys, wow, what do you guys think? Awesome, a lot of really useful information, and as Joelle mentioned, and so of course they're available to get in touch with later if you do something or just want to connect. So please feel free. How can people get in touch with you?
I have cards if you want.
Great.
I also have those square pieces of paper.
Okay.
Yeah.
So yeah, feel free to do that. And of course, we have our Psychedelia team here. Greg is in the house.
Whoop, whoop, whoop. He was here.
He was here. Okay, so we have two of our Psychedelia facilitators here. So other events to be continued. So our next event that's coming up is going to be next week on Wednesday, the 21st, the night before Thanksgiving. We're going to have our weekly integration circle or bi-monthly integration circle in Santa Monica. The one before Thanksgiving will be a gratitude theme. Is that right, Greg?
Absolutely.
So come together, join to have a community Friendsgiving in our community integration circle. And then a week after that, I will be teaching an online course called the Psychedelic Integration 101, the what, why, when, and how of psychedelic integration. It's one of the educational courses I put together, and sometimes I teach it in a live format, and sometimes I recently started doing it online, so people who are not from the area can also join, and it's been really neat and successful. So the next one will be on November 27th. That's a Tuesday between 2 to 4 p.m. All our events, by the way, are listed on our meetup page, Psychedelia, and we update it regularly, typically at the last week of the month. So check in. And let's see. And then, of course, we have our other community circles in the San Fernando Valley. We have a new circle in Victorville, which is near Apple Valley. And we have a circle in Los Feliz, and two a month in Santa Monica as well. What else? So one final announcement, actually. So Psychedelia has been, as mentioned, about 2 years now, going strong. And for 2019, I have a new goal for the organization. So this, again, has been a grassroots organization that grew kind of out of my private practice, and then some amazing core community members stepped up to lead our community circles while I was pregnant with my first child. Joel was one of them, and Greg, of course, and John. And for 2019, I have a wish, actually, and I want to invite everyone to maybe hold the vision with me. I want to turn it into a nonprofit organization, and that means bringing in more people from the community to be involved, to contribute their different talents, so we can really make this a vision that's larger than the sum of its parts. And I will probably hold a community evening about this to have a conversation about it sometime in the next month or two. I'm still getting my thoughts together, but I just really wanted to put it out there. And if any one of you is, number one, want to participate and help this thing grow, help our community grow even larger, even bigger, and also has maybe experience with nonprofits or just want to give any advice, please come and speak to me afterwards, and we would love to have you join the team. Okay. And one more thing, actually, that I did want to mention. I know we have some guest members here tonight who are actually coming in from the areas of the fire. And I want to take a moment to just remember that actually just a few miles away from here, we have a lot of brothers and sisters of our community, actually like really people that we know, friends that have lost their homes, found themselves just like their lives turned overnight without shelter, without possessions, and maybe lost their pets. And so I just want to take a moment to give gratitude for the lives that have not been lost, for our safety, for our protection, for safe spaces,
And also to put in a prayer for Mother Nature and for all of us to learn how to treat Mother Nature and ourselves and each other better. And that's probably one of the greatest teachings of the psychedelics, is to treat ourselves better, to treat each other better, and to take care of the earth. So please put in a collective prayer for that. So if you just want to take a breath and put in your intention. For all of our brothers and sisters to come together at this time as they merge once again with their highest selves. We are all spiritual beings undergoing a human experience, so let's not forget that. Let's connect with our infinite consciousness and understand that so many things are possible if we just release, let go, surrender our self-imposed limitations and just connect through love and devotion and friendship, connection, family, and God. And so it is. Amen.
Amen.
And in that spirit, we have some time to use the beautiful yard to keep connecting. So you're welcome to take the opportunity and introduce yourself to someone that you don't know, make a new friend. And yeah, we'll see you guys next time. Thanks for coming.
Thank you, Sylvie.